the fucking great deluge in here. Don't touch that. Leave it alone. Don't fuck with it, man. Oh, God. Did you eat all this acid?
That's right. Music!
Music.
You better pray to God there's some Thorsies in that bag. Otherwise, you're in bad fucking trouble.
Music, man. Put that TV on!
Yeah, so welcome to Rufus the Villain. We're talking about music today. Music!
I love that clip.
So, Toni, it's Rufus the Villain here with Toni. And, Toni's a musician. And, I want to start off, with your, what music is for you. Like, what it means to you.
Well, music, I mean, for me, it's really that one thing that's always been consistent in my life as a kid, and it's really the only thing that makes more or less sense in an otherwise
it's like the one
insane
consistent
world.
it's like the one consistent thing.
Right. I mean, it's the one thing that I could really go to when, regardless of whatever is going on,
Right.
It just helps me interpret the world.
Right. What are some of your, well, this is obvious to me, but maybe not to listeners, but some of your favorite artists, like some of your favorite songs that have ever been recorded?
Oh, that's a long list. Dude.
Well,
That
let
is
me
a
have it, man.
Seriously,
Let
long
me have
list.
it. Let me have it.
I mean, I call it musical ADD. I can't stick in one genre,
Right.
or listen to one group for days on.
Music.
Well, it actually depends. Actually, I could listen to Nirvana for days on.
Yeah.
end. I was a big fan of Nirvana. That's one of those.
Well, and today in particular, I used to be a hardcore raver.
Mhm.
And today in particular, I was just cleaning house and came across some electronic music that I haven't listened to in 20 years.
Nice.
And, and I was like, hell yeah, turn it up. I want to hear that again. But continue with what you were saying about Nirvana.
Oh, well, I got into Nirvana in the late 80s, a little shortly after Nevermind came out. Well,
Bleach?
actually, no, I take it
Bleach, right?
back. No, yeah, I got into it with Bleach. Bleach was the first exposure I had to them, but right. But it was one of those bands that at the time, I loved their sound, but I didn't really know too much about them, and it was hard to get a hold of some of their music aside from going to places like Sam Goody and the whatnot.
Right.
But then when Nevermind had hit, that's when I really got exposed to a world of music that to me was the best of all, because it was structured, but it was, I don't know.
It was punk, structured punk.
Right. And it borderlined on lazy music, and I loved that concept because a lot of
Lazy
people,
music.
well, you got a lot of your purists. I'll say, oh, well, their song only consists of 3 cheesy power chords, and maybe they do this.
You might as well go listen to Bach and Beethoven.
Right. And that's the other thing too, is I listen to classical too. I mean, I listen to it all. I only cut myself off from most music after the turn of the millennium, when it started becoming really overly processed and filtered,
Sold.
Yeah, and well, not even in that respect. It was just the effort of what music used to require was now taken out thanks to things like computer technology, auto tuning, and all that other happy crap, and also because of, I think, a social form of what's the word? Complacency.
Okay.
I mean, if you look back, music always had roots to social happenings in various ways.
Right, yeah.
Or it always played a role in social matters. Nowadays, music, the way I hear it, and for most of the groups that I hear and singers and whatnot, they just cater to almost an illusionary life of, okay, well, I have money, so I get to fly over to here and party over there and do all this other shit. And and don't get me wrong, though, there are artists out there now that still, have some really profound messages and actually do work at their craft in a genuine sense. But the majority of groups that I hear don't have that. They don't have that same kind of vibe. It's almost cookie cutter to me.
Well, that makes sense because, like you said, it was topical. It was topically pertinent. That's actually the way to phrase that. Topically pertinent.
Yeah,
you had
exactly
you had the Beatles. You had Hendrix. What was that? You remember War? What is it good for?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely nothing. Who was that?
think that was what was the? Oh shoot, I can't. remember.
Tony's hitting a bowl. Give him a second.
I can't remember the name of the singer, and that kind of bugs me because it's actually a really good song.
Yeah. Well, it's like it's on point with people like not like stuff like music is not written about like things going on anymore. It's just like this cheesy cookie cutter like
Right.
Let's just write about like. Let's just write about like having money and being a teenager.
Well, and it's not even so much about being a teenager. It's from what some of the things that I've heard over the years, it really more or less seems like the musical equivalent of shaking keys in front of a baby. Let's just dangle this persona in front of you, and we'll show you all the things that this person has in the video, but actually doesn't have in real life.
Well, music videos is something that I think is a lost art.
Oh, music videos. I got so many gripes with MTV. It's ridiculous. But
when it used to be music television.
Right? For that wonderful short period of time before they realized that they could oversaturate it with stupid-ass reality shows.
My favorite music video that stands out in my head is Pearl Jam Jeremy.
Nice.
That's like my favorite music video.
See, and even the music video itself had a really good message to it.
It was about public shooting and like suicide and
right.
You don't get that anymore,
Nope.
man. Like there's like no substance really anymore.
And when they try to go that route, they take it in such an overly emotional approach.
Emo.
It's you just don't even want to listen to it because all it sounds like is just someone bitching and moaning without.
My dad didn't buy me a PlayStation.
Right? And shit, and even that's considered like passe for modern groups now. It's like, oh well, no one understands. Like it's the same thing that we had back when we were teenagers. That no one understands me, but instead of being pro aggro about it, they just
pro aggro. I like
they just
that.
become extremely introverted, and they adopt the candy coated life of like, oh well, I'm sad, but someone owes me something. It's like, you know what? We had our issues with depression in the '90s, being teenagers and hormone driven.
Well, think about OG goth.
Yeah. But then we also had the angst, though. That was like that big thing. And then
we didn't have cell phones yet,
right? And we didn't have, we had our game consoles, but it was nothing on the level that it is now. So we actually were felt compelled. We'd play video games, for however many hours, but then even that would get stale for us, and we'd have to go out and go do things.
Yeah.
And it was before everything was then delivered to you via the internet and all these other mediums. So going to a concert and stuff like that was a major event for us.
Oh,
back in
hell
the
yeah,
day,
dude.
you
Hell
know?
yeah.
You get to socially interact with people of a similar mind.
That like the same music.
Right? And it was actually cool,
Well, and I'll be up front. Like, the most frequent band I saw was ICP.
Nice.
That is the I think I've seen ICP in concert like 10 times, but that was like the most frequent band that I saw. But I also saw like Suicidal Tendencies and but like you said, like the same mindset. Like it was really interesting to like hanging out with my dad, hanging out with my buddies, you and Chad and all that,
Right.
and then like going to an ICP show. And then everybody's like, I'd like paint my face up, and I'd go there, and everybody there had their face painted. Right. There was a certain thing that it did for you.
It was a level of camaraderie.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I just thought it was interesting. I mean, there's plenty of bands out there that I would love to go see, but I think more often than not that I wish I could just invent a time machine and go back in time to when some of my favorite bands were doing shows, and then also the interaction level was completely different.
Right.
I mean, this was even before, like, these were like the Atari days,
Yeah.
So gaming consoles and like life gamers, weren't much of a thing.
Life gamers, like that.
No, and these people spend their lives playing video games. I mean, it's not my thing. I can't.
Well, I like games, but about an hour and a half,
right?
I'm done.
I mean, I'll maybe play, if it's a really good freaking game, I'll maybe dedicate an hour or two to it a day.
Yeah.
But normally, if I do want to do it, it's like maybe only for half-hour increments.
Well, I just don't, like, as a teenager, I would game for like 3, 4, or 5 hours at a time.
Right.
But that's, now I'm an adult. So I've got a adult. Like, so when I get home, like maybe I've got like that 2 hours a night that's like free.
Right. Well, it's easier when you're a kid because you have all the time in the world. It seems, and you're not necessarily free to just hop on a bus and go to the mall or go see a show. So you had to find something to eat that time up if you didn't have anything else that you wanted to do. And for me, it was like playing Super Mario Brothers.
There you go.
From like 10 o'clock at night to 2 o'clock in the morning, and then getting up to go to elementary school. I mean,
yeah, it's different.
It was different. You still had shit you had to do, but not on the same level that you had to dedicate so much emotional thought. Yeah,
it's not on the same scale.
So like with being a teenager in the 90s, I mean, that was, I
was right there. I was right there with you, brother.
I mean, that was a good heyday, dude.
Yeah,
I
man.
mean, go see shows, freaking ditch school, hang out at the old bus station when it was
Ditch
downtown.
school. That's right, man. That's right.
I mean, it was the thing to do.
Well, one of the big things for me when I was a teenager, like I surprisingly graduated high school. But you remember Travis and Gar?
Yeah.
We used to shout out guys. They don't listen to this, but shout out. Like we would ditch school, go smoke weed, and just wait till the bell ended, and then we'd go home.
Right.
But the reason to bring up Travis is he had a band.
I remember that.
Right next to my house. They had like a recording studio right next to my house. And like one of my favorite memories is like I would sit there and go watch them practice, and we'd pull bongs.
Right.
And that's what we would do. And there was this kid, I forget the kid's name, but like we were hanging out there. This kind of like trails into like what music meant to me. Like we were like pulling bongs and stuff, and like they would do their session or whatever, and I forget the kid's name, but all of us were just fucking baked. And then Travis looks over to this unnamed kid that I can't remember, and he says, "How you feeling, man? How you feeling?" He says, "Like a day in the sky."
Nice.
Like a day in the sky. But it's like I remember one of their practices, they smashed a guitar.
Oh, it's terrible.
And there was something wrong with it, so they smashed it.
Nothing that couldn't be fixed.
Yeah, but they ended up taking the pieces and spelling out the name of their band.
Oh, that's cool.
And like taking a picture of it. I thought that was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. So what? Just like off the top, your favorite music to listen to, just off the top, because I have a list. I'm sure you have a list.
Well, as far as like music genres,
well, you can go in any direction you want to.
The thing is, I mean, I have.
Well, you and I both listen to a lot of the same stuff,
right? I mean, I like music from the Upper Northwest, what is known as grunge, quote unquote.
Booyah!
That. I mean, overall, it's probably one of my favorites because it's a very eclectic style that actually does consist more than just 3 simple power chords. It's actually a really good culmination because a lot of the artists that make that specific, or that type of music integrate multiple, genres into it. It's like, you could easily take something that has a 3-chord progression and make it, and adding more from your own influences like metal and all that other stuff. And back then it was Sabbath, Anvil, Saxon, a lot of those old school bands.
Shit.
So that was all integrated in it too. I mean, you can even hear like connotations of that in the song Negative Creep by Nirvana. That's just one example.
That's a good song.
And I think it's actually kind of funny. Kurt Cobain actually hated thrash metal. He did not like it at all.
Strangely enough,
he did not like it at all. He liked heavy metal. He loved Sabbath.
Did he?
But he didn't care for speed metal.
Well, that kind of makes sense.
That
kind of makes sense to like the way he put his songs together. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, he was really into the punk scene. That was more his thing.
Well, would you say that Nirvana was kind of punk influenced?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Kurt Cobain's first rock concert was Black Flag with Buzz Osborne.
Oh, shit.
So I mean, that sets it right there. And I'm a big fan of the Melvins too, man. That's a great fucking band.
I used to listen to the Pixies a lot.
Nice.
Like so if I had to give a list, like my favorite stuff that I listen to like on a daily basis to today would top of the list. Top of the list, Johnny Cash.
Nice.
Top of the list, Johnny Cash. And then after that, probably Static X.
Yeah, nice.
Static X, Cold Chamber. I still listen to some Korn. Uriah Heep.
Good.
Yeah. That's good stuff, man. Like, guys out there, if you haven't heard Uriah Heep, do yourself a favor and go just YouTube Uriah Heep the Wizard.
Right.
You just listen to that song.
It's a good track worth listening.
Yeah. And then going down the list, of course, I'm going to say ICP. I don't care how you feel about it, but it's something I enjoy. Twisted, Mad Child. Chime in with good bands.
Oh, okay.
Porno for Pyros.
Yeah. Nice. Jane's Addiction.
Yeah, Jane's Addiction.
L7, the Fastbacks, the Posies, the Fusty Lugs for UK subs, the UK bombs.
Well, we were talking about this about a week ago. It was like, I fucked a sheep. I fucked a goat.
Oh,
Right,
the anti nowhere league.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's.
And I always think it's funny. The first exposure I ever had to that band was actually through Metallica doing a cover. Of
yeah.
So What?
Yeah.
And
So what?
It's
So what?
When I heard James Hetfield reciting the verse of "I fucked a sheep, I fucked a goat, I rammed my cock right down its throat." So what? I mean, that I just started laughing my ass off. 'Cause I was
Right.
like, "There's no fucking way an actual band wrote this." And then I found out, yep, there's a
band wrote
British
that.
punk band called the Anti Nowhere League.
So, kind of staying on the vine of what you just meant, like British punk. Like, what about Sex Pistols?
I like the Sex Pistols.
Yeah.
But the thing is with that band, I think they got way too much hype
Yeah.
for what they were bringing. I mean, they have a great sound. I own Nevermind the Bollocks,
Mhm.
and I even own Sid Vicious's side album, Sid Sings.
Mhm.
But when you really break it down, I mean, they were just, no different than any other
Well, then
punk
you gotta
band.
at that point you gotta look at the real revolution of American punk. Think about like the Ramones, the Dead Kennedys.
Right.
Why am I drawing a
Agent Orange.
the Misfits.
The Misfits.
The New York Dolls.
The New York Dolls. Nice.
Technically, the New York Dolls was the first punk band. Technically,
I've heard many arguments on that. I really don't focus on who started what. It's
Right,
the fact
right.
that it exists is enough for me.
right, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
I'm just happy it's around.
Who would be your favorite punk band? That's a good question.
That
right?
is another good question.
So I'm
yeah.
big on the Dead Kennedys. I'm big on my cousin's band, the Impossibles.
Well, I like almost everything that ever came out of Joe Biafra's label, Alternative Tentacles.
Yeah, dude, Alternative Tentacles.
I mean, I'm a big.
Wow,
Dead
dude,
Kennedys fan.
shout out, hell yeah,
That's
dude.
a label I always wanted to be on. Actually. I mean,
so much good stuff came out.
Plastic Surgery Disasters is actually one of my favorite albums of theirs.
The Descendants.
The Descendants. God, I think the Circle Jerks.
Circle Jerks. Yeah. What was that band that was? They were all pornography actors. I forget what they were called.
That's a new one to me.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
it'll come to me towards the end of the episode. It'll hit me.
And then
Shades Apart was really good.
yeah, Millencoin.
Yeah, dude.
Gosh, NoFX. I mean, if you want.
How did we take this long to get to NoFX when we're talking about punk?
Well, we're kind of rolling in chronological order, kind of.
Yeah. Like, what was their big album that had "We Are the Bruise," sporting anti-swastikas, tattoos, oi oi oi.
That wasn't Heavy Petting Zoo, was it?
No, I don't think it was. It was Neapolitan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, oi oi oi, because they were oi punk.
Yeah.
which was the thing, was oi punk.
Which I think is something even funnier. And this is something I've always come to realize about the American music industry. When it comes to popularity, what it takes to become popular in the States
Yeah.
is that you start the sound here. You roll it through the underground scene. It doesn't really pick up by most at that time like record labels and stuff like that, like Sony and EMI and other ones. So it goes through the innards of the underground and then gets picked up.
The innards of the underground.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. The guts of music. I mean,
Oh man.
it goes through that and then gets picked up overseas somewhere. It doesn't have to be in one specific area. It has to be somewhere overseas. And then once it gets picked up overseas, the mainstream back at the States realizes, oh, there's a new style of music coming from across the pond, It's it's this new thing called punk rock,
Punk rock.
And all of a sudden now it becomes more popular and it gets a lot more recognition. And you get a lot of these kids that just jump on that bandwagon because it's something that their parents don't like and they don't really understand that it's actually involving more than just throwing a fucking teenage fit.
Right.
And like that was really what I found to be so frustrating is that, I mean, it's changed more since back then, but you used to have to make it famous somewhere else before you could make it in your home country.
That makes sense.
That was basically media manipulation. And this is
Right.
before things like YouTube and, easy access media.
Before podcasting.
Right.
stuff
And things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a constant struggle. And then all of a sudden, especially like with grunge, I thought this was kind of funny because I equate grunge to being the last American-born genre of music.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, at least for the rock and roll aspect of it all, because I mean, metal's been around. Metal was around before then, so metal had already.
It's more of a
and
British
that
and
exactly,
British
and that started across
across the pond.
Yeah, and so. We had our rock and roll, in the 50s through the 60s with psychedelic rock and things like that. And then America just kind of put its head up its ass with disco.
God.
But then
Let's not talk disco.
And then you had punk rock going on, which was its answer. And then, grunge comes along, and then bands like Nirvana go on their first, European tour, and they go, start different places like Australia. They come back, and all of a sudden they're fucking famous because somebody across the way sent that music back, and then it became a style over there, and then it had to become a style over here.
Right.
And all the while, all these little fucking peons that just have to get on the bandwagon are pretending like they've been there since the fucking beginning, and they can't tell you, how many band members just in the Seattle area were interchanged between other bands, and how many times that band actually changed its name before it became the name that they know it by.
Like Mudhoney.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
How many kids out there nowadays will ever know the correlation between Pearl Jam, Green River, and Mudhoney?
Oh, dude,
those three bands are all interconnected by members.
Exactly.
And
that's why it pops into my head.
And kids don't know that nowadays. They just get flashed on the TV or on the Pandora, on the YouTube or whatever it is with what the companies want.
This is our job to educate.
Damn right.
This is edutainment.
Well, that's what I try to do with my music. It's like why I love grunge and why I love being in a quote grunge band is that it's a music style that so many people will shit on and will say, oh, it's just a dead form. It was only a flash in the pan. And you know what? That gives me more fuel to want to do it more and be far away from all those other little fucks.
It's like saying rap is a flash in the pan.
Right? And rap, I think, is something that took a devolvement. I mean, I remember back in the 80s when it was hip-hop.
Well, you know me. I'm a big fan of rap. You know I am. Like I'm very picky on what I like, but so if we get into let's go ahead and go down this rabbit hole, like hip hop, rap. What is one of my personal favorites? I would have to say is probably like Run DMC.
Nice,
just OG, just because it's where that's just like where I was introduced to it. I
always called them wholesome rap.
Well, yeah. Here's the thing: is they didn't cuss,
right?
They didn't cuss. And then after that would have to probably be like Brother Lynch.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah, and then after that, I was real big into NWA.
Oh, nice.
And then probably after that was Cypress Hill.
Nice.
And then I get and today I listen to a lot of really weird, they call it horrorcore.
Mm-hmm.
With, Low Key, Mad Child.
You want to hear something funny though? There was a group back in the '90s called the Gravediggers.
Oh, I know Gravediggers. Yeah, I know Gravediggers.
I think they really put the foot in the door.
They probably started
rap
it. They probably started it.
They got some dark shit in their
they probably started along with Brother Lynch actually.
Right.
Brother Lynch hung actually, if you want to get technical.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of where my mindset is I really enjoy rap. I personally like fast fast rhymes,
Right.
like Twista, Busta Rhymes, Watsky. You know, like I like a lot of stuff like that. Like, what kind of like rap and hip hop do you like?
Oh, dude, like I remember back in the 90s, that was a requirement for where I grew up. I lived on the south side of town.
Oh, I know,
and
I know.
that was, you just had to be in that, you know, you had to fit in that just to get by on the day-to-day and keep people from fucking with your house. So, and plus I loved the music too. I loved the beat assembly. I liked it. It was a precursor to like things like Fruity Loops. They were taking samples and mixing it in, having it stuck on a wonderful loop, and then they would recite basically the utterance of poetry.
Free flow over
You
it.
know, but I used to listen to all different kinds of rap. I mean, Africa Bambaataa was one of the
nice.
earliest exposures I had.
What about Tribe Called Quest?
You know, I didn't really get too into them. And same thing with like groups like Heavy D. I didn't really,
Heavy D and the Boys.
I mean, I'd heard him, but I didn't really get too far into him. But what I used to love, I mean, I listened to NWA. I listened to a lot of their offshoots, especially some of the stuff that MC Ren had contributed on. I listened to Bone Thugs and Harmony. I listened I also listened to E40, The Loonies, Shock G. I mean, God, who else? I mean, of course, Tupac. And then, you know, I was never really big into, was it Notorious B.I.G.?
No,
that one wasn't really
his style, you know, not to take away, but his style just kind of wasn't my thing.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's an East Coast thing, and I don't really...
Well, we're West Coast,
yeah,
man.
and it's a world apart for me.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there were so many different groups. I mean, I used to also listen to Drew Down. I mean...
Drew Down, man. That's a deep cut.
Then you had some of the quasi light rappers like Coolio, which was more of the socially acceptable, you know, type of rappers.
What about? I'm gonna drop a bomb. What about Vanilla Ice?
You know, last I heard, he owns a bicycle shop.
He does. He does. Like I remember Ice Ice Baby, and I remember Ninja Rap.
I remember he tried to make a comeback as more of a hardcore rapper.
I actually bought that album in the '90s. It's called Hard to Swallow.
I just couldn't get into him even from the beginning. I mean, I remember I first saw him in Living Color. He did a performance on
Ice Ice Baby. Ice Ice Baby.
And that was the one too. And I was like, I just can't get over the hair.
Then he joined the JCW, the Juggalo Championship Wrestling.
I heard about that
as
too.
Rob Van Winkle, his actual name.
What a name!
Yeah, right. That's
at least his parents didn't name him Rip.
They could have. They could have.
That's probably what they actually did. But I don't know. That's further out of my realm.
Let's move on in styles. Like, so we kept we've talked a little bit of grunge. We've talked some hip hop. Let's get into metal. Let's get into metal, and then we're gonna move on from metal to hardcore metal after that.
All right. Well, first, before we get into that, I actually want to put a plug out for my homeboy D. Actually, our homeboy D.
Shout out!
Shout out to you, D, man, out there in Georgia.
We love you,
dude.
brother. We love you, brother.
The Southern Disciples is the name of his band, and these guys are fucking awesome, dude. I've listened to some of the tracks that they have available on YouTube. And I wholeheartedly
we gotta get him on the show,
giving
man. We gotta get him on the show,
definitely. Because him and I go way back to junior high.
Me too, man. Like the word of the day is.
Yep.
That's an inside
joke.
That
was back when that's why I had that really crappy neon too.
Yeah.
But I mean, his band is really great. But yeah, I totally recommend to everybody out there.
I remember the first day I met him. I was wearing a Pantera shirt, and he was wearing a Pantera shirt.
Mm-hmm.
That was the very first day I met him. I was like, all right, this guy's my homeboy.
Me and him used to go on a series of crazy ass adventures. I mean, what we used to do back in junior high is we would actually, we were in good with our guitar teacher, and this guy was awesome. His name is Mr. Steve Schulman.
Schulman, yeah.
And that guy, bless his heart, wherever he is, man, that dude's fucking awesome. And he'd loan us some of his music equipment because he'd have various amps and stuff in his classroom. And he'd let us borrow it for the lunch period. And what we would do is we would go plug in to the cafeteria's outlet, drag everything outside via extension cord, and we would literally play for 45 minutes. I mean, here I am, a 13-year-old with another group of 13, 14-year-olds, and we're all playing this music, and we're already drawing a whole fucking crowd around us and getting harassed by the monitors. I was like, this is like what it must be like to be a rock star.
Well, talk about a good influence. Like that teacher influenced you to be proud of what you're doing? Like, he didn't have any reservations to like, okay, these kids want to play music. Here's my equipment. Go play.
Well, what I loved about that man is that he had very little bias on music. He had, and this is something.
Guarantee you, he listened to a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah, and but he was actually one of the first ones to really get me further into the Stevie Ray Vaughan style of blues. And
we'll get into blues.
And but the thing is, around his classroom, he had posters of different guitar players of all different genres. I mean, he had Kirk Hammett, he had Kurt Cobain. He had Stevie Ray, he had B.B. King. He had so many different posters, and it was all inclusive of all different genres of music from all different parts. And
well, he had a respect for the talent,
right? And what he also had, and this is like for a young teenager first getting into guitar. This is like looking at a holy wall. Like it's like finding a lost tomb with a bunch of holy scriptures that have been lost for thousands of years. He had a bookcase that went from one end of his classroom to the other, packed with Guitar World and Guitar Player magazines.
I fucking love this story, man.
I remember when I first saw that, my jaw dropped, my eyes lit up, and I asked him, "Can I read one of those?" He's like, "Yeah, you can, read one. You can read them all if you want."
Oh man!
And that's what we did. I mean,
he made a difference in your life, right?
A big time difference. He's actually the only. He's the second guitar teacher I've ever had that I wholeheartedly respected.
That's awesome.
And
man.
I did not ever give him lip on his teaching because he knew what he was fucking doing, and he knew, more importantly, how to present it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the
awesome,
trick,
man. That's awesome. It'd be like if I had to put it like in my scenario, it'd be like if I was to like, because I'm at the point where I could literally teach the history of comic books. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I was to start that course in a high school or college, and what I would have on the walls is like Steve Ditko, Stanley.
You'd have a PhD in DC.
A PhD in DC and Marvel. But yeah, like so. Let's continue on the topic, man. Like we were talking about metal. Let's go with metal, and then we'll kind of progress a little bit.
Well, I've been listening to metal since the '80s. I mean,
yeah, me too.
Thanks to like people like my brother and his friends, and some of my other friends and their older brothers. I got really into metal because that was just perfect for a teenager.
Right, right.
That is exactly what a teenager can use to really get a lot out in a positive way, really.
Right.
And
what was your first metal album?
First metal album was the Kill 'Em All album from Metallica.
Booyah. Booyah.
To this day, that's actually my favorite album of theirs.
Mine would probably be Ride the Lightning.
Another very good album.
Yeah.
I liked their first 3 albums more than anything else because they had their second bass player with them, which was Cliff Burton.
Mm-hmm.
And that guy brought an element to that band that no one else could really really mimic or replace. And even though I didn't like Jason Newsted as the bass player in that band after Cliff died, but I loved everything he did outside of Metallica is freaking just awesome.
Well, the
shit.
band lived on. The band lived on, but like he actually ended up going in. Newsted ended up going in playing bass for Sepultura.
Yep.
Which you guys check out some Sepultura.
And like with like he had a band called Flotsam Jetsam.
That's right.
And that band is fucking great. I mean, everybody out there, you gotta check. At least give them a listen, a fair chance. Because if you didn't like Newsted and Metallica like I did, you might like him as his own musician rather than being a part of a pre-existing group that treated him like shit.
Right.
And that's the thing, man. After Cliff died, I mean, I can't really judge somebody on how they handle it, but how they handle themselves long after the event has already come and gone.
Well, he also had shoes to fill.
Right.
Like, people were going to automatically judge him already.
Well, I judged him because and that was unfair of me, really, because it was what the band wanted him to be. They wanted him to be Cliff, and he just couldn't do it. They didn't want, and the thing is, they would argue about that. is like, well, we don't want him to be Cliff. Well, then why are you having him try to play styles like Cliff would? Why are
Let
you
him do his own
you know,
shit.
why are you giving him so much shit? Because he's the new guy? No, that just doesn't cut the mustard with me. and that's when I started to lose more and more respect for Metallica.
Yeah.
And to this day, like I mean, I have many of their albums. I have basically everything from their first album all the way up to S&M. And because I liked the concept of metal being backed by an orchestra.
Oh yeah.
But when they just started acting more and more like in what I would, it's just an opinion. I'm not slandering anybody in case anybody gets offended. Is that I think they turned into a bunch of fucking alky douches. I mean, and then what they did in Load and Reload, which I think would have been phenomenal albums if they had done it outside of their own name. If they had decided to make a side band and then have done those albums, I think they would have kept their fan base for one, and two, they would have been able to show that they're not just a singular band.
Yeah, well,
they could have shown a little bit more of an eclectic nature in those albums if they had done it under a different name. But they decided to take that name, which myself and so many other metalheads out there,
too.
We considered it an act of dragging something beautiful through the fucking mud. And they had just finished. They had already released the Black Album prior to that. So how?
Which, in my opinion, was their best album.
It was all right. But how much of a slap in the face is that for metalheads to hear this badass album, which has become a staple in like a big
Enter Sandman, Fade to Black.
That those are iconic songs for that band,
Yeah.
thanks to producers like Bob Rock. And what happens after that? They all of a sudden develop a different side to them. They want to do something that's completely 180, thinking that band fans will respect them for that. It is hard to do. Unless you have something that will blow somebody away, you should probably just start a different band, do that, and then go back to what you were doing after that to see if it even takes off or not. If it takes off, keep going with it.
Well, like the next one I want to hit on is like kind of like where we're at is new metal, which is my favorite genre.
Yes, it is.
Static X, Korn, Cold Chamber, Mudvayne. There's a myriad of these bands. Like Papa Roach tried to be in there. They tried, but they just couldn't fit. What new metal would be is kind of like, Limp Bizkit's up in there too.
You're fucking kidding me.
They tried.
I mean, Wes Borland was the only positive thing in that entire
Dude,
group.
yeah, like
I loved his playing.
He had an awesome side band called Blacklight Burns.
Mm-hmm.
But Limp Bizkit was garbage.
Yeah, right. I mean, thanks to one cap-wearing moron. I
mean,
well,
then we have like Drowning Pool. I don't know. Like I was like so like on this topic right now. I'm like drawing a blank. Like I already gave like a list, but new metal was like a totally new type of way to go at metal. Like there was like electronics, there was rapping, there was
you had that before. You had that in the early '90s, thanks to bands like Anthrax and Public Enemy.
Anthrax.
Oh
yeah, what was that song they did together?
Bring the Noise.
Bring the Noise.
And
System of a Down.
System of a Down that came later, yeah. And that was more like mid to late '90s.
Yeah,
you know, and like a whole new metal thing. Me personally, I just can't. And most of the new metal bands that are out, I just cannot get behind.
I know, man.
It took a cookie cutter dynamic. I can easily splice multiple metal bands and their songs and turn all that into one song, and most people probably wouldn't even notice.
Well, like the big thing for me is like when it comes to metal, I just love the heavy voice,
right?
And like one of the newer bands I listen to is they're called Avatar. Amazing voice, but they are actually on the new metal kind of like archetype of the way like they put their songs together.
See, one of the things that pissed me off about metal and will always just cut through me like a hot knife through butter is the melodic breakdown in a chorus with while the singer's like screaming his head off,
which
And
I love.
Only a handful of bands I've ever encountered can pull that off. Kill Switch was one of them.
Yes, love
Kill Switch and the Devil You Know, or
Devil
it's
You Know,
the
it's
same
just,
singer more or less, but I mean, I can't stand bands that get they get hard with it and they're growling. I mean,
and they start going.
Yeah, all of a sudden everybody wants to be a fucking opera singer, you know, in the middle of this
fuck
hardcore
off, Five
metal
Finger
song.
Death Punch.
I mean, you get no argument from me on that one.
Yeah.
But then again, I will slap this shit and verbally out of so many bands out there. But I can but I also give them their credit due because they're doing what they want to do and they're making money and they get to live the life. So I mean, if it works for them, it works for them. But as far as I'm concerned, it's just not in my realm.
Right. Well, I'm very, very particular on my metal, and I'm a metal head. Like I like the hardest, heaviest, evilest shit that you can get.
Except for Slayer.
It's, we're gonna have to talk about this. We're gonna have to talk about this. Slayer's music is amazing. I just can't stand Homeboy's voice, man. I just can't stand Homeboy's voice. It's like they tried to like start doing death metal and then brought in an 80s singer.
Yeah, I will tell you this though, man. You cannot deny their due. You got to give credit where it's due.
Oh yeah.
Thanks to, I mean, they're part of the Big Four. I mean, that no other band can get near that because not only
I can't argue that.
They are basically the founding fathers of thrash metal, and then what sprung from thrash metal,
death,
and then basically new metal owes its due to bands like Slayer.
Oh yeah, there's no arguing
that. But I've heard these new metal bands. Oh well, thrash just fucking sucks. It's not.
Dude,
it's not the same. It's not hard enough. It's like, I'm sorry. Listening to a band singing, my girlfriend left me and I'm being really mad about it. I'm going to go smash a bottle in a window. That's my protest. I mean, that is a theme I hear in nu metal more often than not.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have the gall to say that bands like Slayer were not hard enough, and all they're singing about
South
is
of Heaven.
Like basically murder, destruction, and chaos.
Yeah.
It's a reflection of the social standing of that time.
Yeah.
So they had their, they literally just brought what a lot of people were feeling, took it a few steps higher, and then. Then all of a sudden you get new metal.
What's the singer from Slayer?
Tom Araya.
Like I can't say that he doesn't have an amazing voice. It's just when it comes to like hard sound, it's just not my cup of tea. Like, because I also listen to shit that's like legit death metal. Like I like when I decide to listen to something hard. I want it hard.
Right.
I don't want a choir boy.
Well, it's like what I love offending teenagers nowadays that think they know metal with what I used to love to listen to. Like
Iron Maiden is one of my personal favorites.
Maiden is a good one. But then again, also thanks to public saturation. I mean, basically a lot of it's swag. Like, you see these kids walking around with like shirts from the album. Shit, I can't even remember the name of the album. Number of the Beast.
And they've never heard the
album.
album.
And they've never heard it. I've seen kids wear that with Nirvana shirts, but it seriously offends me.
Never heard the album. Never heard the album.
And Misfits, all the Dead Kennedys, like, okay.
Never heard the album.
Oh,
they're wearing it because it's cool.
Yeah, exactly. And that is a really dangerous fucking thing.
Yeah.
Because I remember one time I was hanging out with a friend of mine, and his little brother had a Dead Kennedy shirt on. I saw that shirt. I was like, dude, that's fucking awesome, man. Right on.
It's a holiday in Cambodia.
Oh, and then I felt compelled to ask him. I was like, so, what's your favorite song from theirs? He's like, oh, well, I don't really listen to them.
I just wear the shirt.
I like the design.
Oh,
and all you can do is just take a deep breath, let it out, and shake your head. And then you tell them, how about you actually listen to that and then tell me if you still want to wear that shirt.
Right.
I mean, especially like
you remember my old house? I had the holiday in Cambodia poster
on your door. Yeah. And like, but with a lot of the misrepresentation and just the consumerism that gets thrown out there, it makes it hard to really keep that kind of sound and feeling alive.
Right.
You
right.
know?
Yeah.
Because like if you, like some of these kids, man, particularly with bands like the Misfits too, it's like, oh, these kids are wearing Misfits shirts,
And they're 19 years old in 2019.
No, not even just
that drives me crazy.
That doesn't drive. Well, kids are kids. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't really change that. But what bothers the shit out of me is when you see this kid or this girl or this boy wandering through the mall. They have a Misfit shirt on. The girl has little Hello Kitty shoes on. The boy has like a fucking Twilight backpack on, and with a fucking Misfits shirt or a Misfits, and that's the other thing, Misfits shoes. You know, it's like, holy fuck, man. I mean, I can understand everyone needs to make a buck, but make sure you're representing everything about what your music entails.
Right.
You know, with your swag.
I like that with your swag.
You know, it's like it baffles the fuck out of me that if these kids actually knew the lyrics to almost any Misfits song out there, oh, that's too dark for me.
Well.
Where's the love part? Where's the love song?
Hey, where's the love song?
How about Die, Die, My Darling? I mean,
Die,
there's
Die,
a
My
love song
Darling.
for you.
You got to throw in some Guar at that point.
Right? And that's another one.
Yeah.
I'm glad Gore was able to keep it going after
American
died.
Monsters.
Right?
That's
Scumdogs of the universe.
Yeah. The Guar had some of my favorite like album covers.
Right.
You know, and what was that cover that you and I watched them do? They did Kansas.
Yeah, Carry On. They've done a couple, but oddly enough, the one that I love even more than Wayward Son,
Wayward Son, yeah.
is their cover of Billy Ocean's Caribbean Queen. That I saw them do that on the TV, and I just started fucking laughing. That was too good. It was too fucking good. I mean, wow, seeing Gore cover Billy Ocean.
so we still have a couple. We still have a couple like genres cover. Let's real quick go over like 60s, 70s rock.
I'm hip with that.
Like Hendrix, of course.
Yeah, Hendrix.
I love Jefferson Airplane,
which later became Jefferson Starship.
That's right. And Uriah Heep.
Uriah Heep is another one. Then you have
Captain Beefheart.
Iron Butterfly.
Iron Butterfly.
Straight from God's brain to your mouth.
And Frank Zappa.
Nice. That's a good reference.
Frank Zappa did like moving to Montana soon.
Right. And then
gonna become a dental floss tycoon.
Well, the Muffin Man was my favorite track.
Yeah.
But
girl, you thought he was a man, but he was a muffin.
No, and then you have like there's so many different '60s bands that didn't really get their fair credit. But then again, when it comes to '60s music and '70s music, well, almost all music, I keep it out there. So I mean, I was listening to bands like Procol Harum and God, who else? Lulu. Who else?
Hawkwind.
Wow.
Shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that.
Then was it Deep Purple?
Deep Purple. Damn it, dude! I have this album.
Santana was another one.
Santana.
Actually, Santana is one of the heaviest influences on some of my guitar playing.
Santana was amazing.
I can throw down on some of his style. And then, I mean,
Molly Hatchet.
Flirting with Disaster.
That's right.
Oh gosh, I can't remember. Yeah, like bands like Steelers Wheel, Steely Dan. Shit, the Allman Brothers.
Stevie Ray.
No, Stevie Ray didn't come around until
He was like 80s.
late 70s, early 80s. Because Texas Flood didn't come out until I think like 83.
Okay, yeah. Because his second one was Sky is Crying, right?
Mhm. And fuck, I mean, I was listening to a lot. I mean, shit, I was listening to a lot of like funk.
I wish we had Papa Lackey on the fucking line, dude.
Right there's your source right
he'd
there.
He'd be like, oh guys. Like, oh, you don't even know.
There's a lot out there. Unfortunately, much like the people who lived through the '60s, I can't remember much of the names, but it was a really good song.
Yeah, it was really good stuff.
It was really good stuff.
It's the best.
Totally blew me away.
Oh, there's a lot of good Beatles stuff. Like, remember when the Beatles got in trouble for saying that they were bigger than Jesus?
I love the Simpsons reference to that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think of my favorite song from like the 70s. It would probably be. Honestly, I was really into the Village People. I listened to a lot of their stuff.
Nothing wrong with that.
Did you know they got sued by the YMCA? Yeah.
You want to talk about a free plug?
Yeah, they got sued. They got sued. They were like, yeah, I guarantee if they weren't like the Village People, you guys can't see me air quotes, the Village People, they probably wouldn't have gotten sued.
Well, if they just say it, man. If they didn't have such a following of people that were gay,
Gay.
don't tap around the issue, dude.
So, kind of like closing out before you play a little bit. Let's talk about some of our favorite blues.
Blues, dude. I love
Robert
the blues.
Robert Johnson for me.
I mean, I get shit. And talk about Lead Belly, freaking
BB King,
BB King, Albert Collins, Lightning Slim, Lightning Hopkins, Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Should we just real quick shout out Stevie Ray Vaughan? Anything? If you guys, again, listeners out there, if you don't know Stevie Ray, man, do yourself a favor.
Right.
Do yourself a favor. Like Jamie and Commons is one that I really enjoy. He's kind of a new artist. He reminds me a lot of a little bit of mix between Johnny Cash and Stevie Ray.
Mm.
But what else? Let's name some more blues artists. Johnny Winter.
Yeah, dude.
Johnny Winter.
Johnny Winter. Now,
Yeah.
there's him and his brother Edgar, man.
Frankenstein.
One of my favorite '60s songs. Or actually, wait, was that '70s? I can't remember when that song came out.
You know, the first time I heard that song was Encino Man.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I used to. There was an old hippie that used to live up the street from us back when I was a kid. He used to blare that music all the time. My grandmother did.
What about what about Muddy Waters?
Muddy Waters? Catfish Blues is one of my favorite songs.
Yeah, Muddy Waters. I'm kind of like coming to the end of my knowledge of blues, but you know, I grew up with a blues guy.
Right.
I grew up with a blues guy. Like his whole thing was good blues. You know, like even Hendrix did a blues album.
Yep, and that's thanks to him. That's how I found out about that blues album.
Yeah. So do you wanna play some music, brother?
Well, I mean, I've got a couple things around the bend, but I also just recorded actually.
Dude,
this was actually kind of funny. The story behind this. I was talking to my buddy D, who's in the Southern Disciples band, and he just, every now and then I'll get the itch to play. But talking to him, I decided, you know what, fuck it, I'll just go ahead and take my phone. I found a backing track on YouTube and just plugged in, put my phone in front of the speaker, and just let it rip. And
that's awesome too.
Yeah, but
Southern Disciples. Shout out to D again.
Yes, indeed. But actually, I'm working on an instrumental. Well, it's going to be more of an instrumental album than anything else. If you're into like guitar players like Yngwie Malmsteen or Steve Vai, Satriani, any of the guitar masters, as it were. Hopefully you'll dig this album. Still hasn't had a name for it, nor do I even have a name of the group yet. But so far, I mean, I've already started working on recording a few tracks, and this is just one kind of a pop fly example. The backing track has already been made by somebody else, but the leads that are in it are all just improvisation, and it's pretty much just kind of, it was just like a one take, let's see how it goes type of thing, and this is what it turned out to be. So hope y'all like it.
Let him have it.
All right, hold on.
He's setting up the cue real quick. Nice, man. That was dope.
Thanks, dude.
That was dope. So let's end out our episode here talking about music. Like just at our very end of it, like I think we all love different types of music. That's why there is different types of music.
Here.
Here. Well, thank you, Tony, for being here.
Oh, thank you, dude. It's always fun.
I'd love to end it out with some of your own music. Like everybody actually knows that Tony is actually the one that did the theme song for Rufusville and True Crime Corner,
And that was very fun.
Yeah. So once again, man, thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you, dude.
All right, and we're out.
Laters.